obviously in this business you see a lot of violence, but there's usually some sort of irrational, twisted logic that's given to why a violent event took place. Here, I mean, it defies all logic, and I think that's what's really so terribly disturbing about this case. There's absolutely no reason. There's nothing more innocent than an 8-year-old child, and to be, killed in this manner is just, it's heartbreaking.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was Police Commissioner Ray Kelly, somewhat emotional, uncharacteristically so, talking about the gruesome murder of 8-year-old Leiby Kletzky. Police have charged 35-year-old Levy Aaron with the crime. The issue of just how safe children are on our city streets has become a major topic of discussion in the wake of this tragedy. And joining us to sound off on the topic are Brooklyn State Senator Martin Golden, who's also a retired police officer, and Nancy McDermott, a mother of 2 young children who runs the parenting website, The Parenting Mystique. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for being here. Senator Golden, you put out a release shortly after the arrest talking about your own experience as a police officer and talking about a piece of legislation that you think could prevent some of this from happening.
Well, it's our children are the most precious commodity that we have, and we in the state of New York have a poor record in some areas when it comes to the child abuse that goes on within the state of New York, and we have to deal with that. But going back to this was an out-and-out snatching of a young child, which broke many, many people, not just here in the city, but across this country to tears. How you can take an 8-year-old boy and do what you did to that young boy. And to the family, to being at that funeral last night, all you could do is just cry and cry your heart out, and for them, for the family, for the boy. But as a police officer, I remember Eaton Pates, it was 1979. I myself, as a police officer, remember looking and had that kid's face etched in my mind every day, hoping to find this boy alive. And of course, it wasn't until several years later that we found out that the boy was taken by a person that knew the family from Pennsylvania, a bad guy, and that guy should have been put to death for that gruesome killing of that young boy. And the same here with Leiby. This boy was 8 years of age, taken off the street, killed and mutilated. That man, they may say he's a little slow, or he, some people say he was sick and deranged. I do believe that he knew, just like the man that took Eaton Pates, he knew from right and wrong. He knew what he was doing. And when he took that boy and killed that boy and took the breath out of that boy and away from that family and from that community, he should have to pay for that. And we put a piece of legislation out there that would, and it's been out there now for a couple of years, and this is we put it in the beginning of this year, January, February, and it would give anybody that would, an act of this nature, the death penalty for a newborn up to 12 years of age. And that would send a signal to those that would contemplate taking a child and killing a child, and it really give you that reservation. Before you do that crime, you know that you will, in fact, have an option of a death penalty before you, besides a life without parole. So you would have both options. Mm-hmm. But when you take a look at it, across this city and state, we have 60 to 70 people die each year in child abuse. This number here, the actual children that are snatched off the street and murdered across this country, is about 600 to 700 kids. That's significantly, some people think that's not a large number, that's a significantly high number. And if you take a look at the cases that we have here in the city and state of New York on child abuse, and you start to put those numbers together, we have to get serious about dealing with child abuse and murder here on our children.
And now, against those grim numbers, Nancy, I'm a parent, you're a parent, you write and think a lot about this. There is this sort of other direction that some have written about, and some have sort of dared to write about, saying like, look, no matter what's going on out there, we can't be what they call helicopter parents. You can't hover over your kid every minute of every day, right?
I agree with that. I mean, unfortunately, I think that things like this, we can't control everything. Things like this will happen now and then. I mean, this is an exceptional incident, which is why we're also horrified by it. I mean, when I heard the news, I felt like I'd been kicked in the stomach. And I think every parent to to an individual who I've talked to has felt the same way. But at the same time, I think that the idea that kids are in danger from people like this all the time just doesn't correspond with our daily experience. You know, I think if you know, it would be one thing if we were living in the New York of 1979, where things are kind of falling apart. But I really think now most people, although we're really upset about this, there is a real sense that that's not our experience, that's not our New York. Yeah, there are bad people out there, and we have to teach our kids to deal with them. But we don't want our kids to, live inside and never do anything because of the very slim possibility that there might be a Levy Aaron out there.
This was about as measured and slight of a calculated risk as one could take, right? I mean, to walk 3 blocks in a fairly insular, statistically very safe community, and to have sort of walked him on the route as well. I mean, it just doesn't get any more.
Absolutely. I mean, they did everything sensible that you could do. I mean, he sounded like he was ready to do it, and it's just incredibly, incredibly tragic, bad luck that this happened. It shouldn't have happened.
And Senator, I mean, we don't, Eitan Pates, that you talked about, the case where you as a cop were out looking for him like everybody else was. We talked on this program a few weeks ago about a young woman, Chanel Petro-Nixon, a case that I've been following for 5 years, 16-year-old, very similar kind of a case in a way. Kisses her mother, walks down the street, broad daylight on a Sunday to apply for a job, and her body is found 4 days later. And no intervening, totally unclear what happened. But we don't want to use the worst case as a way to make our laws, do we? I mean, no. That's how you shut down a society, isn't it?
It is if you're thinking about shutting down a society. Or do we actually assist society in coming up with legislation that actually sends the message home to all the families that their children will be safe walking the street, and to those bad people, those extremely bad people that will harm a child, that the legislation is in there, that they don't get off.
In New York, in effect, we have no death penalty right now.
No, we do not. So today it's life without parole if you have murder 1. Mm-hmm. So we need to have this individual prosecuted under the murder 1 statute. And to do that, we have to change the murder 1 statute so that we can allow for death penalty as an option, and to make sure that this person never sees the light of day again.
And let me make sure, just based on something you said before, do you actually think that a crazed psychopath would, somewhere in the back of their mind, I mean, these are people who by definition have some problems with rationality and impulse control, somewhere in the back of their mind they'll say, well, you know what, I better not take this additional step because there could be some consequences for
If it was a psychopath, yes. If there is proven track record, this has a history of a psychopath, yes. Mm-hmm. The individual that killed Eitan Pates wasn't a psychopath. Mm-hmm. He was in jail already for a previous crime. This individual here is married, divorced, lived in society, lived with his family. You need to be able to get that message across, that if you're going to commit a crime, you're going to pay with it with your life, or without parole in jail. And the only way you do that is making these crimes as tough as you can. And that, I believe, is the right thing for the people of this great city and the people of this great state.
And I'm sure it'll be taken up. What a conversation. I know you do a lot of work with Park Slope parents. What are the conversations going to be like, do you think, in the days and weeks ahead?
Well, they've already started, and I think there's a very lively conversation now about how you educate kids about how to tell a good guy from a bad guy, and how you make children comfortable enough to trust their instincts and to know what to do if something doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. And there's some good resources out there. I mean, I think the other thing is just there's more of an awareness of the role that other adults play in taking care of kids. So, I mean, I think what I hope will come from this is that people will be less likely to just look the other way if something doesn't seem right. Because, to me, I think having a real deterrent is having people there all the time who are willing to say something, who are willing to question, and who are willing to assist a child. You know, if there were more people around, maybe it wouldn't have been Levy Aaron who Leiby found.
As far as you're concerned, is this still a town where an 8 or 9-year-old can get on the train by themselves and ride around?
Depends on the 8-year-old. I think there are definitely 8-year-olds who would be fine with that. I think, Ray Kelly was very sensible about this. It depends on the situation, the neighborhood, depends on the kid.
Right. Certainly, and his parents, in Leiby's case, knew him for every moment of his 8 years. So we wouldn't second guess them. But
absolutely,
a very difficult issue. Thank you both so much for shedding some light on it. And I know this conversation is going to go on all around the city for quite some time. We are going to take a break now. Still to come, we'll discuss the legal challenges facing same-sex couples who are preparing to get married in New York State. Stay with us.